Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. And today, on this Level Up Advanced 5th Edition Tuesday, we're going to take a look at the third book in the Triumvirate series in Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. We're going to take a look in Trials and Treasures. And specifically, we're going to take a look at the boons, the discoveries, the rewards, the enchanted items that come along when adventurers go on their adventures, and of course they would like to receive something, and for their troubles and ordeals. And we may even delve into crafting magic items. Yes, there is a crafting magic item section of the Trials and Treasures book. Some would consider the Trials and Treasures book to be like the Dungeon Master's Guide. Not exactly, but it is far more than just a collection of magic items. You can absolutely use this for all of your third pillar of exploration events, because a lot of the character functions for the third pillar are in this part of the book. But we're going to deal with the boons and rewards that may come along when you encourage your players to go out and adventure, and what items that may come along with it. So here we have the exploration challenge, and under exploration challenges, there are a host of different uh, obstacles, hazards, issues, problems, things that are in the way of the characters when they go exploring into the deep unknown. And during that during that time, they make the reason for players to take the most difficult route to get from A to B. One of the mechanisms to entice your players to do that is that it's a possibility they may require some kind of some sort of reward for exploring the unknown. So if I can expand this here, if you don't mind. So under, let's see if we can do this one more time. All right, here we go. So, mm, 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 mm. So under exploration challenges, we have a list of the names, some of the potential ways to solve the situation, although it's highly suggested your players be very creative, and you as a narrator be creative in their use. But at the end of a lot of these, depending on the die rolls that they have, the skills that they use, and their ingenuity, they may discover some kind of boon or discovery. So above my head, under a critical success, for example, as they navigate an acid field. Under critical success, the adventurers make it through the area successfully, and they notice something important. Roll on the boons and discoveries table. And for many, if not most of these, that is a an option that may happen if they come across a number of these exploration challenges. Now, exploration challenges are listed with a title, and then you'll see down here, just below the title, there will be a tier level. For example, in an acid field is a second tier terrain. You'll also see, come on, there we go. You also see a challenge rating, an experience point level, a DC for a lot of the skill checks when navigating and performing other functions in that area, maybe gaining some knowledge as well, and then um, what kind of area, like how wide or narrow is the area, and how long it would take to navigate around it. And of course, if you're absolutely using a time scale, that might be extremely important, especially if the PCs are running away or running towards a particular location or individual or some other kind of MacGuffin. There's plenty in here, from Bridge of Sorrows and Stones to Choking Smoke and all these kind of things. Some of these are social encounters, like such as involving counterfeit goods. Others might be more arcane, like a corrupted druid's grove, or something a little bit more mundane but dynamic, like a collapsing roof. And then you can mix and match all of these depending on the situation that you would like. But There's a lot of these dark alleys, Divine War, which is my favorite because I helped write this. Woohoo! Um, yeah, and of course, all of these can be layered over top of any kind of like region that you have, or a city, or location. But that isn't necessarily the important part. Although you gotta have the flimsy rope bridge. I don't know. There's something about a rope bridge that's just really cool. That is very evocative of exploration in itself. But of course, at the very end of the rope bridge, with a critical success, the adventurers safely make it across the rope bridge and notice something important. While doing so, roll on the Boons and Discoveries table. So let us go to the Boons and Discoveries table. All right. Mm-mm-mm. Am I in the proper section? Am- oh, I'm a little bit ahead of it. I'm getting into treasure. We want to get into, uh, yeah, adventuring rewards. There we go. Oops. Let's see what you guys have to say. All right. Hey there, the End King. Mike Marin says, Mike Marin says, I have this book now. Unfortunately, I've meant to be working. I read it. Very pleased. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. It's 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 very different when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons in the terms of like giving lots of examples and things like that, as in terms of being like inspiration elements, and we tried to pack it with as much as possible. Dan King says an acid field sounds like an awful experience. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it's for. Awful experiences. All right. Well, maybe not so much, but whatever. Okay, so for adventuring rewards, there are a number of things, such as like, of course, you have yourself treasure and experience points, but maybe there's something else that you want to add into it. And so it gives you examples of how much treasure to give, percentages of which tables, and things of that nature. But we do have a bit more. Of course, we have descriptions of gems and gold and gemstones, the types, values, uh, other items such as jewelry and such. Lots of random tables, artwork, rings, spells as treasure, etc., etc., etc. And then a list of all the magic items listed by their specific tables. And we've seen that in other Dungeon Master's Guide, right? Tables, magic items listed and such. But I want to come here for the boons and discoveries. So boons and discoveries are basically um, things that the players may come across while they're adventuring, and while it is a little bit of a meta game, it might encourage your players to kind of take the long, dangerous route to get to where they need to go, because they might come across um, some kind of encounter element that might benefit them while they're traveling. So here have under Boons and Discoveries, we have a list, and that random list, of course, you don't have to use. It doesn't have to be random, but here on the left, under Boons Discoveries, a type of boon might be anything from 1 to 10, like an animal, blessing, follower, maybe herbs and medicinals, a route to get to one place to another. When it comes to routes, the adventurers discover a shortcut, reducing their journey time by 1 day to a minimum of 1 day. They might learn a secret, they might gain shelter, find supply, treasure, or something other, which is very unusual. And as you go through, and each of these is a subtable. So under animals, there are there are details, and when it comes to animals, uh, it could, especially if you have nature adjacent characters, rangers and druids, although it's not necessarily needed. Clerics and warlocks really fit into this as well, because in mythology, a lot of times if you come across something in nature, it may have a relationship with divine beings and things, like a message written in a spider web or something. Yes, I'm talking about Charlotte's Web, but there's a possibility of things like that as well. Um, Dances with Wolves. The main character in Dances with Wolves is followed by a wolf who seems to warn our main character about dangers and things like that. So that's a possibility. And there's, of course, there's a random table for animals, followers, uh, possibility being followed by an NPC that is helpful, maybe for just a moment, or follow the group. Medicinals, herbs, and other things. Mm, 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 mm. Maybe find something on a route, such as a local tells the adventurers of a better path, or a discarded backpack with a local map, a distant map, and a frontier map. One of these maps depicts the region around the adventurers, or an animal shows the adventurers a new route, which is kind of cool. It also can give a clue as to what kind of setting, what me. I bring up the accursed desert, so maybe they get followed by a scorpion or something like that, or the scorpion leads them somewhere. There's secrets as well. I'm sorry, secrets and shelter. They may come across something of that nature as well. And of course, all of this is to tell a bigger story, um, giving clues as to. I mean, for example, accursed desert. Are they really going to? I mean, unless they find an oasis, are they really going to find things that might be found in the swamp? Maybe not, but maybe it might give you some kind of inspiration. Of course, we have supply, treasure, and other strange events. So we get into our enchanted gear. So that's just a small part of like rewarding players for basically poking around in your world. Thinking says, DBJ, how are you feeling? I'm not feeling too good. I'm a not to get too deep into to my issues, which I'm a pretty blessed individual. I'm a diabetic, and I can feel my blood sugar's been out of whack recently. Even watching my diet and medication and stuff, such. So yeah, I can feel it. I'm not sick in the bacterial or viral sense. I feel a little bit off, but that's it. Like Mary says, I would say it's the best post 5e book, better than the chunk in Xanathar's about downtime, or that weird second half of Tasha's about traps. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, considering it was written by like 30 different people, it's pretty amazing. We were divided up into different groups, and I had a part in the explorative section, so I'm pretty happy about that. Mike Marin goes on to say it actually helps build the pillar of exploration and has a bunch of stuff about problem players and running the game. Yep, but deep down, I'm a sucker for magical weather hazards. Yeah, I I think weather's like undersold in role playing games. You know, uh, I'm y- y- I love like storms and winds and mud and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we deal with it. He, uh, just speaking of us in the United States, we all four corners and all across the flyover states, man. We go through a lot of different weather events, and to the point that I don't know how to measure this, but I would think that the United States probably has not the worst weather, but I believe we probably have, out of all 4 seasons, some of the worst weather events and environmental effects across all 4 seasons than any other place around the world. Now, there might be specificity, but I think across all 4 seasons, yeah, it's pretty horrible here. The Ant King says, yeah, in standard D&D, it's more like one big tower with 2 small potted birds next to it. Oh, hilarious. Yeah, it is kind of like that, right? It's a lot of green screening, right? Where yes, we're in these dangerous places to explore, but really it's just pretty much green screen. I mean, it looks terrible, but it doesn't really have much of an effect. Whereas in level up A5E, it gives you the option to be like, yeah, if we're going to be in a cursed desert, we're going to have sandstorms and sinkholes and quicksand and uh, all kinds of things, right? You could just start adding in like the arcane weather part of it, where you could have dust devils, and then you start to have monster encounters and all that kind of stuff. And you start whacking and stacking. All right, so we get into enchanted gear. You got to have magic items. Come on, you got to have magic items. And then we get into like the rarity and the cost of the magic items. But the big thing you'll notice here at the beginning of our magic items. That's above my head. Let's get away from the top of my head and get into a number of these. So let's go with amber wings. All right. So under amber wings and all the magic items, you'll see, of course, there's a name, and then it'll tell you like wondrous item, whether it's uncommon, its rarity, and whether it requires attunement. Along with all of them, there is a gold point cost. Now, I'm not a big fan of magic stores. I apologize. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, wow. Very unprofessional. Sorry about that. So, under under all the magic items, we do have the actual gold piece cost. So, now again, I'm not a big fan, me personally, I'm not a big fan of like magic stores. Maybe like very common items, sure. Potions, scrolls, and then recontextualized, reskinned common items, things like here's a scarf of not choking on smoke, that kind of stuff. Sure. Uh, but if you're one where your players are acquiring maybe more magic items than you'd like to give them, this is a place for them. This is a way to get some value out of like how much it costs and wheeling and dealing. But something pretty important just below that are the crafting components. So for amber wings, the crafting components are tree sap taken from the dreaming. And under every one of the magic items, there are crafting components. Um, and the I wasn't part of the magic item design team, but the design team tried to go out of their way so that it's not about murder killing a bunch of other sentient creatures to acquire things. Some of these you might have to acquire, like for example, over here, amulet of proof against detection and location. The crafting component is a quasit eye, right? So would that require killing it unless it's able to give it over to you? Sure. But then there's other things like for the air charm, feather from a migratory bird collected on its third return home. Like, how do you know that one, right? Some of these things are like time based, weather based, seasonal. Some require are weird things like acquiring the truth from a fiend or something like that. So all the magic items are that way, all of them. Of course, that's important when it comes to crafting your own magic items because what do you think what do you need to do so? Well, here's a way. And also, you could possibly limit the magic items gained by your players by having a maybe not quite constructed magic item in the first place, so that after an adventure or three, the players return to acquire the magic item that needed the component to continue it. Like, for example, um, here like an arrow of slaying, right? Maybe there's a ranger that wants an arrow of slaying to kill the dragon, and you're like, yeah, you can get it, and you're thinking in your head, oh, why did I agree to that? Well, now they need a piece of flint from a stream in a primeval forest to construct the arrowhead itself, and then maybe it can only be constructed with the blood of a creature that's already been killed or something like that. So to get dragon arrow slaying for dragons, maybe it requires a scale or blood from a dragon or something of that nature. So we go on and on and on with these bag of tricks. There's lots of brand new magic items. Which ones are brand new? I don't know. Box of these sounds pretty new to me. All right, let's get back to what you guys have to say. The Yanking says, I used to live in California where when it rains, it drizzles for a week straight. Now I live somewhere else and rainstorms are powerful. I agree with weather hazards. Yeah. And listen, don't get it twisted. Wherever you live, you've got terrible weather. I don't "Oh, it's always sunny in California." Yeah, you got pretty when it rains, it doesn't rain often, but like you were saying there, at the end, King, when it rains continuously. And what happens? You get mudslides. When it doesn't rain, you get fires, right? You get the Santa Ana winds. So don't and you also have traffic. I think traffic's a pretty horrible weather event there. But yeah, everywhere else, like I'm in Ohio Valley. When it rains here, it floods. It's horrible. And we're at the end of Tornado Alley, so we get hit with wind shear, derechos, those kind of things. These are the artifacts that an AI would covet. They're very cool. Yeah. So we'll continue paging through these while we have some discussions here. So another thing that they very enthusiastically encourage is basically common magic items. Hand them out a little bit, like hand them out like candy, right? I mean, they're pretty common. Like here's a cage of folly. Wondrous item, common, requires attunement, costs 75 gold pieces, and to craft a cage of folly, remains of a magic item whose crafting check was failed. So what a cool way. Like, let's say your players try to craft something and it fails. What a great way to use, or maybe the players come across a wizard's tower where they were trying to craft something that failed. Maybe they were interrupted, or maybe they just sucked at their skills, and then boom, now you have this. A small silver or gold birdcage traps your bad ideas and puts them on display. When you fail an arcana, history, nature, or religion check, a little piece of a mechanical bird materializes inside the cage. First the feet, then legs, body, wings, and head. You can immediately reconsider and re-roll the ability check. The Cage of Folly can be used once every 24 hours and recharges at the end of each week. Once you have used the bird cage 5 times, the bird sings a mocking song for 1 hour when you fail an arcana, history, nature, or religion check. If you open the bird cage and let the bird go free, it gives you one piece of good advice about a current problem or question that you face. At the narrator's discretion, the advice may give you advantage on one ability check made in the next week. Afterward, it flies away as the birdcage loses its magic and becomes a mundane item, though some who have released their birds claim to have encountered them again in the wilds later. And what a little great story, right? Because it's basically a little bird. Maybe it starts, speaking about your mistakes or something to like an NPC very far away, or maybe somebody else is going through the same thing and befriends the bird, and it's like, yeah, yeah, I suck too, little things like that. So, common items, give them away like magic. The more uncommon ones, who knows? So, of course, they're all in alphabetical order. They have a lot of details. Um, some of these are named items because N World has its own setting called Zeitgeist. So there might be some items that are particular to that setting. Of course, you have to have deck of many things. You can use playing cards for the deck of illusions. And deck of many things. You can use playing cards. Um, if you use the two of diamonds, pull the two of diamonds for the deck of many things. Defeating the next hostile monster or group of monsters alone will grant you enough experience to advance you to the next level. Or the Jack of Spades. A trusted ally, friend, or other NPC, chosen by the narrator, becomes a bitter enemy, although their identity is not revealed. They will act against you based upon their abilities and resources and will try to utterly destroy you. Only a wish or divine intervention can end the NPC's hostility. So that's, things like that. Kind of cool. Let's get to the end here. Mm, 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 mm. Crafting magic items. So, under crafting magic items, of course, they are, you get your details here. For example, it's based on player level, your base materials that you need to craft the item, your special components, as we already mentioned before, the item quality. You may have to have certain uh, very fine or masterworked like item quality items before you can even start crafting them. And of course, there's time required. There's an initial check to see if you can even begin the process. And then there's a final check at the very end to see if you don't break the egg. And then, of course, we have ability checks that are involved in it and the tools required. Tool requirements, specific tool requirements, and even locations might be necessary. Of course, all that made by the narrator, and there are some suggestions in here as well. And determining the rarity, how long it takes, the time to craft, and over here in the pull out box, it talks about like expanding the time it takes or shutting it down, and the DC levels to do so. And then under this, let's see if I can show the table. So general magic item crafting, we have the type of crafting, the tools required, the types of magic items you could make, uh, item examples that are already listed, and then the ability checks. For example, across the very top for alchemical um, magical features, you of course you need alchemist supplies. Of course, you can create potions, powders, or preserved items, and then ability checks, intelligence, and wisdom. And goes about rare item rarity and costs for crafting your own magic items. And this is my favorite part. Sorry, this is my favorite part because sometimes maybe. First, I got to show you the uh, low price and high price of some of these magic items and sample magic item details. So if players come across or you want to kind of modify some magic items or players find something magic and you don't have any really great ideas, roll in these tables to give them some strange like traits or details or things about them. So we have magic item origins, what the origin of that magic item is. We have a random table. Maybe I'll have you guys pick some random numbers or roll some random numbers. We have magic item properties and some of their features there, and we have a last table here for magic item quirks, and kind of cool. I think what is that a D for quirks is a D12, and I'll hover. I mean, I'll stay on these in a minute. D20 for magic item properties, and then a D20 for origin. Yep. All right. Let's see what you guys have to say. The Any King says Cage of Folly sounds really cool. It could also really mess with you in a horror game. I like it. Yeah. Um, some of the magic items are they a little bit on the ridiculous side? Yeah, of course. But the, the purpose was to fall into telling a better story than it was to make powerful magic items. Now, of course, there's a section on sentient magic items. You got to have intelligent swords and medallions and intelligent helmets that want to take you over or tell you what to do or lead you on another quest. And of course, there's artifacts. You got to have yourself, you know, you can't steal the Rod of Seven Parts, but you get the point with some of the most powerful artifacts that are very common in Dungeons and Dragons. Um, without stealing the IP. But there's a lot of that as well. So under, give me a number for D20, D20, and a D12. And then we'll get into that, get into some of those features. But I want to go back up here when it comes to crafting artifact properties. These are all of the artifacts and some of the capabilities of the artifacts. Orb of Dragonkind, all these things. You gotta have a codex. Gotta have a codex. Cane of Chaos, Ancient Broom, how to destroy artifacts. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay, 513 and 2. King says, I love that there are clear rules for crafting. That means any artificers or artificers Artificers and inventors reading this can do things as well as enchantment wizards. Also, remember, and something players seem to forget. It's like players love extra capabilities, love it. Oh, I want to craft new magic items. Great, great, great. Here's the problem: if you can do it, they can do it too, right? So your NPCs can be part of that. The Ending King and 5e, you can be the Ledge Enchanter. All right, so we got a 5, a 13, and a 2. So let's get back down here for our crafting situation. Let's get back down here. And let's see what we've got some details here. Oop, I didn't get to the table. All right, so we got a 5. Um, aquatic. Let's see if I can, you know what? Boop, 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 single page spread. Sorry. There we go. Aquatic. Crafted by merfolk, tritons, or similar aquatic but non elemental cultures, this magic item is made of coral, sea plants, and scales. Using it underwater does not impose disadvantage, even if it normally would, such as attacking with certain weapons, nor does it count toward encumbrance for determining penalties to swimming. So, this maybe this item is it could be a magic hammer or even armor, a shield of some sort, right? A cloak, something that like normally wouldn't be usable underwater, but has been designed by merfolk or something like that. You also picked number 13. That those this is still the same table. We have magical item properties. And oh, 13. Here we go. Restful. If the magic item is in your possession for the entire time, you can finish a long rest in 6 hours instead of 8. You can still only gain the benefits of a long rest once per day. So the item, let's say it's a cloak that's like a net that you can wear around your waist or wrap around your body or wear it like a cloak or something, but it was aquatically made, and maybe that net's usable, easily usable underwater, and maybe it's woven from like seaweed or something like that. But also, when using it, it allows you to rest. So if you're swimming through the ocean, I'm just coming off the top of my head. It's at 5, 13, and 2. Bearer's mark. So this is a quirk. The magic item physically marks you for as long as it remains in your possession. This might take the form of a tattoo or a brand, an unnatural change in eye or hair color, a slight alteration in the shape of a facial feature, such as your ears becoming pointed if the magic item is elven made, and so on. This change is always minor but noticeable. This is perfect. Skin changes to blue, eyes have nictitating membranes, maybe something like that. Hot hair color turns to that of sea foam, something. Maybe uh, we want to make it more like maybe the person has starts growing tattoos that talk of their past, present, and future deeds, much like uh, tattoo markings of island or culture, things like that. Sounds kind of cool. Kind of cool. And of course, you don't need to roll on any tables at all, but I kind of love it. I kind of love it because what a great way to change up the next +1 sword that someone finds, right? You add in a couple of these elements to it, and it becomes personalized. The aqua cloak. The aqua cloak is hardcore. Yeah, hell's yeah. Why not? Why not? I don't know. Pull something out of your ass, and you just like, especially when PCs and or NPCs come across these kind of things. Again, um, good craft. I think good crafting rules. My issue with crafting rules in general is it's a lot of what's there's no nice way to say this. It's a lot of hand jerking and it's a little masturbatory in the sense of like my character is going to do my thing for myself because I'm going to do it on my own, right? Whereas the way it's designed in A5E, it's like you have to go out and gather components to complete the thing, and that's more adventure. And what a great way to reward your players. instead of defeating the big bad and then getting its treasure, what happens is they defeat the big bad, bring something back, and then a treasure is built for them, which is pretty much the same thing, right? Instead of finding it in a treasure chest in the dungeon, they make it all the way back home, and then they receive their reward from doing a particular thing. Mike Marin says, would be a highly sought after cloak for king crab fishermen who have to fish in long sleepless shifts as the crabs only spawn for a short period each year. Hell's yeah, hell yeah. And the foreman checks the bearers marked and ensure each fisherman gets his rest. Ooh, what a great story about that. Maybe someone gets lost out there, and even with their notable cloak or something, their netted cloak, the aqua cloak is lost, and the fishermen use it or something. Yeah, hell's yeah. It also could be a form of like honor, like, hey, you helped the merfolk defeat their enemies, and they hand one over to the PCs. That's a great way to reward the player characters as well. And to get past the +1 sword, if you get the +1 sword, that's the aquatic +1 sword that has some of these other capabilities that also gives you, eliminates one level of fatigue when you go swimming or something like that. That's awesome. It tells a story too. So yeah. Now, of course, with all these details and all things, we're at the end of the book here at Trials and Treasures. But anyway, at the with various conditions and things like that. But one of the great things about the reward system in A5E, where it's been modified a bit, is that players could acquire details about specific magic items. For example, maybe they learn an NPC has a magic item because of the components that they gathered to create it in the first place. Or the players find out that an NPC is crafting or has been crafting magic items over and over again, and in the process of doing that, the PCs could gain some of the learn some of the crafting features and go, "Oh, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize this was a thing," right? So all this leads to bigger and better stories, and so um, I just love it. And we're talking about strife and fatigue right here. Uh, unfortunately, strife and not unfortunately, well, unfortunate for characters, fortunate for the players and the narrator. Strife and fatigue are tracked conditions. Fatigue taking the place of exhaustion, because fatigue is a little bit different. There's actually 7 levels of it, and strife is mental fatigue. And no matter what level you get to in A5E, fatigue and strife is the great equalizer, right? Like if you're 18th level, you could still die from this, which is unfortunate, but yes. Um the ability to not suffer fatigue and to wipe fatigue away is a huge thing that was actually asked for in the design surveys, and so it was it kept in the game. I know some people really don't like exhaustion and fatigue roles, but it's just another vector for um, it's just another vector of worry and doom and horror and whatnot for player characters to think about, because maybe they're on a, hey, they want to get across the accursed desert and it takes 3 days, but if they push themselves they could acquire fatigue when they get to the end of it. And do they really want to do that while fighting raiders that are riding on giant scorpions or not, that kind of thing. Same thing for strife basically is like is the horror condition in A5E, and use that as often as you want. There's lots of character character class features that allow them to mitigate, wipe away, and or use effects from fatigue and strife. And so, yeah, use it. Use it quite a bit. Let's see what you guys have to say. Mm-mm-mm. The Ant King says a magic underwater sword granted to you by the mer wizard Marlin. You're the wizard Merlin. It's pronounced Marlin. Meet my children, salmon and goldfish. The Ant King says, "Wow, having a combination of both these tables, that would be brutal. Great for if you're trapped in a vampire's personal Groundhog Day." Yeah, and it is pretty brutal. Now, y- y- there's a few ways to look at this. Now, the one way on the on the surface of looking at something like this table is all it feels like is punishment for players for engaging in the world. Kind of, yes. But I would argue that players will now become there's an incentive to avoid these conditions. So your players are going to have to play smarter by avoiding, the big battle with the Scorpion Raiders, right? Avoid the battle with the Scorpion Raiders because we are too tired and we have to rest. Or maybe we should push on, risking fatigue, which is better than fighting yet another day of Scorpion Raiders and giant snakes or something, right? Like that, right? Um, the same thing with strife and horror. Strife can come from hopelessness and things like that, but there are some monsters and some locations where strife has an effect. So going across, I think it's called lifeless desolation, which is basically just a basically like salt flats with nothing, no life, no nothing can grow there, and it can cause strife. There's nothing to look at. There's no land. There's no life. Um, it's basically got a miasma of necrotic energy basically over the whole area, and maybe it's better or a decision to go across this dangerous land for 3 days. Might be it may be the reason why no one's able to reach the dread wizard in their tower, right? Because you've got to make 3 days across this desolate region, and this is what happens to you as you go across. Whereas the players may have to think of better ways to get across, maybe making allies they didn't want or something like that. So, yep, 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 yep. Let me go back to the two-page spread, and then sorry about the ASMR. Mm-mm. Let's go back to the treasure. See what you guys have to say again. I'm trying to think of one last thing. Maybe since we have enough time here, you know what? I might even make this just a shorter episode. But um, some other things to find in here. On to the left, we actually came to the last time we went through this. We came to the end of. Poisons. We came to the end of the part of the exploration part of this, and we came to maladies and other features, and something else that you can find are there are like poisons and maladies and diseases, things that you could come across. Of course, diseases you may not want to. Of course, you, I don't believe a disease is a reward. You might accidentally find this. Players, when they go exploring, I think this should have cleaned these wounds there, buddy. Yeah, and the blood's going to crust on your dagger. That kind of carries bacteria. But yeah, so we have diseases and things that they can come across. One thing that I think was very easy to do is that a lot of the diseases are gated behind tier level. So even when players have like cure disease, protection from poisons and cure poisons and things, if you're not of a particular tier level, you cannot cure it. I think that's just it. That was an easy solve instead of characters having like the ability to avoid curses and poisons and diseases very easily. Instead, like cackle fever. Oh, here we go. Arcane autophagy, autophagy, autophagy. Anyway, it's a tier 4 disease, right? And if you're first to fourth level, you're tier 1. Even if you have like cure disease, you're not going to be able to cure it. So that was just an easy fix so that some things still remain dangerous. And of course, after that, we have to have not just diseases and a lot of diseases, but there's poisons and poison vectors. And some of the poisons aren't necessarily poisons per se. There are some medicinals and such, but most of these are poisons. Um, and then you have poison vectors like contact poison, ingested, inhaled, etc. And then some sample poisons here. You got to have a bunch of various poisons. Any PC worth their salt that is like a rogue, assassin, thief, or something like that. Plus, some of your heralds and paladins that are kind of on the outskirts. Got to have a bunch of that stuff. Bunch of poisons and venoms, and then even something like truth serum. I like the idea of truth serum. Uh, While poisoned in this way, a creature cannot knowingly lie as per the zone of truth spell, using the poison's DC as the spell save DC. I love it. So anyway, little something there to throw in. Yeah, some people do pay for good money for that. The Ant King says disease isn't a reward, but some people really want to make Doc Holiday or someone like that. So this is really cool to see. Yeah, a lot of diseases and things, and essentially, listen, that goes along with adventuring. You want your players. Sometimes the adventure itself is not getting from it's not A and automatically arriving at B. Sometimes the adventure itself is the journey. And so if you want to design a point crawl where it's a 3-day travel to get from um the swamp across the desert to the mountains, and you want that adventure through the desert to mean something, maybe that can be yeah, maybe that can be maybe even a little early, finish it a little early. You don't know. You can't tell me. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, maybe the adventure is going along the direction. And I personally, if you really want to design an outdoor adventure, just think of it like this. Think of, instead of walls and a ceiling in a dungeon, a travel adventure is just a dungeon without a roof, right? It just doesn't have walls, that you just travel from notable feature to notable feature, and that can be its own adventure, instead of the PCs and your players, everyone looking at the clock like, can we just arrive at the front door of the dungeon? Maybe the adventure itself is um, is traveling and exploring and mapping new regions. I always wanted to do I, I, I kept thinking of it called Endless Horizons, but that sounds like a terrible name for a soap opera. But I was thinking of like a setting where every single player character came from their old home and traveled across the great ocean or something like that. Their old home was destroyed. They arrive in the new home, a la the origins of Game of Thrones and the Targaryens arriving in the edges of Westeros. And the player characters have to take care of a community as they travel through this unknown region. And the whole idea is that they have to keep moving, because whatever horror happened back home is coming across the ocean, and each day it just creeps more and more, and you have to keep traveling. And that the entire setting isn't in one place. It's just keeps traveling more and more and more. And I always thought that would be kind of cool to have like the whole point is to take care of a community, and taking care of the community, tribe, nomadic, caravan, whatever you're taking care of, would have its own statistics and kind of metagame hold some of the player characters' capabilities. So they would have to return back to the community and take care of the community to recharge themselves, to go further out. Like, I mean, it could be as meta as the community, has half their hit points or something, or their ability to regain some of their magical features and level up and all that kind of stuff, if you want to get very mechanical. But narratively, I was just thinking like that would be kind of cool. Bunch of NPCs, great way that when a PC dies, they can throw in another character because they're back at the group, depending on what level of character adventuring you want to have, that kind of thing. But never could figure out how to do it. Could never do it. So anyway, guys, we've come to the end. So first of all, thank you very much for just being part of the show. I really appreciate it. If you have been with us this long, I mean, listen, do the right thing. Just hit the subscribe button, get notified. If you're going to bother being here this long, especially if you love Level Up 5th edition, um, tune in every Tuesday. We take another look at one part of the books, maybe a small element. Maybe we'll dig in, maybe even dig into something even more specific or specified if anybody out there would prefer something like that. But anyway, it is one of the 5th edition clones coming aboard. Most recently, we do have Tales of the Valiant coming on board, as well as I'm yeah. Took my metformin. My blood sugar should be coming down. Yeah, it's just when you're a man of a certain age like I am, these are the things you deal with. Yeah, not the birds and the bees. Nobody tells you about stuff like blood sugar and you know I was going to get into some other nastier things. No one tells you about, hair growing out of your nose and ears and all that kind of business. Never really, yeah. So, but this is kind of like this is my coffee in the morning. So I kind of need it. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. If you are someone who catches this later and have an interest in Level Up 5th edition, please take a look at this as an option. It's really strange that everyone's talking about like the new A5E clones out there, and Level Up 5th edition is, A5E really isn't in the discussion, even though it was created like 2 years prior, but whatever. MCDM is coming out with their own system. I'm part of the Kickstarter for Cool Name Goes Here, which is coming out pretty soon. We're up to the 10th design element on YouTube for Cool Name Goes Here. Yeah, like he's like, no one tells you about things hurting when you walk sometimes. Yeah, yeah. Hearing your joints pop first thing in the morning and having to like take longer and longer to stretch out the back and the joints and stuff. Yeah. You're getting older. Yeah. No one tells you about that part. The old knees and the elbows, the phantom pain, that pain that you get in one part of your body, and once it goes away, it seems to show up somewhere else. So anyway, yeah, if you're part of our the Grognardian group, um, I appreciate it. Also, there's a weird feature, but I'm going to start to uh, to promote it. And if someone would like to broadcast this channel on their channel, in the doobly doo down below, there's a link where you can rebroadcast the this channel onto your channel in other places. Not sure. I mean, that gets the word out a lot. Not sure how that might be abused, but why not put it out there, right? Um, so anyway, guys, thank you so much. Oh, by the way, here's a little side note. By the way, man, I want to show. I got to show this off some kind of way. Let's see if I can find this. I popped it in the Discord. Uh, let's see. I did pop this image in the Discord, but during our Chat GPT era, I did come up with a rock paper scissors lizard Spock version, and let's see if I can share this image. Which one do I want to share? I'll share this. Let's see, and okay, and let's see if I can. I want to share. Will it let me do it? Will it let me do it? Uh, mm, 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 mm. It won't let me share. Nope, that's not it. And then let me bring this up. There we go. All right. Bam. And bam. There it is. Did I? Did I type the Padaron? Maybe it is the Padaron. Okay, I'll fix that. I'll fix it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-mm-mm. So here we have the Iron Shadow Fire Blood Light that came out from the because we got like 3 more minutes or so, and and uh yeah. um Iron confines fire, fire burns blood, blood. How to explain this? Blood is like life. Life thrives in light. Light sees iron. Iron uh, iron confines life, which is blood. Blood outlasts or is what would you call it? Is not afraid of shadow. Shadow deceives iron or gets around iron, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you see the whole thing. Anyway, you get the point. Yeah. Oh, hilarious. Hilarious. Yeah, I was thinking of a D12 system. Uh D12 system, the only name I can come up with is the razor's edge. So you want to roll high but not too high. So stats go from a 1 is a crit fail, 12 is a crit success. Um, Stats go from 1 to 10. 11 is a fail. So you want to roll high, but not too high. So it's not a roll low system. It's not a roll high system. It's a roll high, but not too high. So if your shadow is 8, that means you want to roll a d12 and you want to roll high, but you don't want to go above 8, right? So you want to roll anything from 2 to 8. And if you're rolling against, let's say, goblins are hunting for you and they're using their light, which is like observation, iron is like resilience, shadow is deception, fire is conflict, blood is life and willpower, and light is observation, vigilance, perception. So, shadow, you're trying to hide from goblin tribes that are out there. So, they're using their light to try to find you in the shadows. This is without using this table, I mean, this chart, by the way. So, your shadow is 8, theirs is 5. That means you want to roll to beat them, you want to roll above a 5, but you don't want to bust and roll above an 8. And I thought that might be a kind of a cool system where it's not really roll high, it's not roll low. It's you, um what's the term of running away from danger? I don't need to be the fastest, I just need to be faster than you, right? And so and I thought that would be interesting because you can make monsters and NPCs without actually having to roll. So let's say your goblins are rank 5. You actually don't have to roll anything. You just say they rolled a 5 and to roll against to hide from them. Now, if your shadow is a 3, that means you can't even beat their 5, right? Unless the dungeon master, or whatever it's going to be called, rolls. In which case, dungeon master doesn't want to roll over above 5, and you don't want to roll above a 3, but you can still win. Even though you have a smaller chance of winning. And I thought that would be kind of a cool system. Mm-mm-mm. Anyway, guys, have a great one. We're getting out of here. We're doing this on time. I want to thank all of you for just being part of the show, and thank you for just letting me spout out my nonsense. We're going to get back um, into the hero. We're going to get back into the hero's journey, heroine's labyrinth tomorrow and Thursday, and maybe even do a little bit of outline. Maybe do like a very easy Mad Libs, like place noun here, place verb here, place NPC here, place monster there. Maybe there's some way to do that. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I will see you later. Peace.